There's been an enormous blowback on some of the Israeli operations already. Queen Rania was on CNN just yesterday being very supportive of the Palestinians, and I wouldn't say she was supportive of Hamas, but it was a very different kind of conversation than has been happening in other regards. So what's the talk where you are?
So I'm going to try to break down what you said slowly. First of all, I think a lot of people agree that Israel has the right to defend itself. I think that goes without saying. I also think that the aftermath of such a horrific event is also horrific. And I think a lot of people are confusing between Hamas and Palestinians. There are innocent lives being lost right now on all sides, and that is always horrific. The discussion here, it's more as a business setting. Everybody's trying to come together. I'll tell you one thing that I saw here. I see a lot of different people from different nationalities, from different religions, trying to come together. And sometimes business is a place where people can find a common ground, and easier than a political setting. Regarding what you asked me about Israel's reaction and what it should and shouldn't do, except for the fact that I know Israel has a right to defend itself and must, I'm not in a position to state what should and shouldn't happen. I'm not a politician. What I'm doing is my best that I can do as a businessman, as an entrepreneur. And I think it's up to all of us right now to find our own way that we can do our best. But I also think we can be one of two things. Either we're creators or we're destroyers. I choose to be on the creator side.
There were some comments made earlier today by MBS committing to continue these conversations with Israel about normalizing relations. Is that a conversation that's happening on the ground where you are, or executives and some of the other policy leaders and others that are there talking about that?
So I think the news came late night U.S., early here, and I definitely think it sent a very positive signal. I also think, I hope that a lot of people around the world are hoping that the peace talks continue. I pray that they continue. And I was happy to hear that those comments were made. And I really think this is the right direction.
Tell us about the current state of Flow. This is your new company, supported by Andreessen Horowitz. Are you doing? I know you're sponsoring, or not sponsoring, but participating in a competition of sorts, not for yourself, but for kids in Saudi. Tell us about that, but also sort of the state of where Flow is right now.
So, Andrew, after the discussion we just had, it's a little hard to go straight into that. But I think I'll say it in a way that connects. As I said earlier, I grew up in the kibbutz. And that gave me a lot of who I am. And bringing people together and building community has always been what we were about and what I was about. And the WeWork journey was an amazing one and took us all the way into here. And I was very lucky to find partners like Mark Andreessen and Ben Horowitz. And the most important word in our partnership is alignment. And we're very aligned towards our views around the world, and we're very aligned on our moral standards, and we're very aligned on what we want to build. Flow is another iteration of the same story, which is when people live in community, when people live together, when people obviously have differences, but they actually find a way to share passions. They find a way to share business. There's always a common ground. And Flow started by tackling a housing crisis in the U.S. 35-year-olds and younger are renters, over 50%. The exact number last year was around 65% of 35-year-olds and younger in the U.S. were renters. And those renters, that age is only growing. That age is going to be 70% younger than 40 years old are going to be renters. So if I'm a 22-year-old and I'm going to be a renter for the next 10 to 20 years, I need an elevated experience. I'm also going to spend a third of my income on that rent. And it just makes sense that I would want to do it in a place where I'm part of a community. I've been saying this more and more when people ask me, but I think we live in a world where we need more friends, right, not more followers. And Flow is using technology and community to bring these buildings together.
Adam, we've talked before about lessons learned from the WeWork experience, but the WeWork story has shifted since we last talked. Most recently, the company warning that it could file for bankruptcy. And I'm curious how you're thinking about that now, both the future of WeWork and the entire WeWork story.
As you know, Andrew, I haven't been involved in the past 4 years. So I've been staying on the sidelines and observing. And when I think of the WeWork story, put me aside, I think of the unbelievable team that we had that built this global business and the efforts they put for over a decade. I have the pleasure of working with some of those team members today, and we talk about how amazing it was. I think WeWork's opportunity today, its product market fit, is even greater than ever before. In a world where leasing is as difficult as it's been and office occupancy is in all-time lows and companies are not sure if they're hybrid work or full-time work. So it's been difficult to observe from the side and see what's happening.
But as you look at this and you say there's a market fit, does the model work, and does that has what's happened to that model shifted any of your thinking or been a lesson for how you're thinking about flow? So, as you said, I've learned a lot of lessons from WeWork, and we're applying all of them to flow. And one of them is when you're outside of a situation, it's sometimes hard to understand exactly what's happening in the inside. So I'm looking at things from the outside, and I'm seeing what's happening in flow. And in flow, our residents are using our spaces not just to live, but we have co-working, ancillary services in our spaces. We just added conference rooms in our spaces. 70% of our residents work at least one day, if not longer, from home. The future of living and the future of work are really correlated. But as we mentioned, I have my great investors. I'm partners with A16Z. Everything that I'm going to do in the future is going to take the lens of alignment and everything through flow. And as a team, we have been observing what's happening to WeWork. And yes, we do believe there's a shift in the model between what happened in the past to what happened today, specifically to enterprises that are now tackling returning back to work, work from home, work in the office. We've been talking to some of the largest Fortune 500 companies on the planet, and their needs have changed. But the need of people working together, the need for community has never been greater.